Hello and welcome to February 22nd, 2022. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily good life meditation, something that I do every morning, first thing, to remind myself of my life objectives and principles, and to see how I did applying them yesterday, and how that impacted my sleep, and then to plan for the coming day. So let's begin with last night and yesterday. Didn't sleep well last night. Strange. I was up probably 2 hours before the alarm went off, which is set for 5 a.m. So I must have been up by 3. And, the usual, thinking about work. It's funny how I slept well the nights before, even right up to the alarm, when work was 24 or 48 hours away. But once work is before me, that's when it gets hard to sleep. Strange thoughts too, half dreams, as I lay there kind of half awake. Funny things, but all of it related to work. Which is, and I'm not quite sure why I'm so anxious about work, because work's going well. It's not like, things are out of hand at all. When I was younger, even when things were going bad, I still could sleep. Things aren't bad and I still can't sleep. But when I don't have work to think about, I sleep. Yumiko and I are dreaming of retirement. We keep playing with the date. August 2024 is our most popular date, but we want to make sure that our daughter is successfully out on her own. So, it's tricky to find the right timing to do all of that. We will. As for yesterday, it was it was a really good day. I in terms of a good use of time, Emily had been sick with food poisoning the day before. Don't worry, she's fine. She was fine pretty much all along, except for, vomiting a couple of times, which is not fine. But what I'm trying to convey is she wasn't in any real danger. It was something that was well managed. She went to the clinic early. They gave her the appropriate treatments, and she's okay. In fact, yesterday she was up playing video games by the afternoon. But Yumiko and I decided to stick around, just to make sure that we could attend to her. And Yumiko did a great job. She made her really nice. She brought her, appropriate type of sustenance throughout the day. She's such a good mother. And I pretty much sat here and read my book, and got a long ways through the final book of Aristotle, that I'm reading in this volume, which is Politics. Certainly the best for a topic that I never thought I was very interested in. Now I'm extremely interested in the topic of politics and the importance of politics for the development of a good city, a good state, and a good life. Thank you, Mr. Aristotle. And I also did a big climb. I took a long hike. I climbed another big peak in the mountains behind me. So it was a good day, but a rough night of sleep. Oh, and I wanted to give an update. Remember 2 days ago I talked about the death of the 1611 King James Bible? Don't worry, it's not published in 1611. It's just the version that it is. Well, I had second thoughts after I made the Good Life meditation that day, and had actually started my day. I decided, you know what, maybe I can rescue that Bible, because I'd thrown it in the trash. And I felt awkward throwing it in the trash. So I pulled it out of the trash and kind of pieced it together, and it's like Play-Doh kind of. Because remember, it had fallen and It was an old Bible and it had busted to pieces. Oh, and while I was doing that, I read through it a little more, and I found an inscription in the front. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. That Bible had been given as a gift by a church in Los Angeles to a man in 1934. So I deduced, I think that's a deduction, that, or maybe it's induction. I surmised that the Bible must have belonged to the father of the woman who had owned the house and had died at the estate sale that I was at. So it had a little more, I think the word is providence, the history of it, the history of the thing. So I was pleased that I was able to recover, learn a little bit about it, paste it back together, and I put it up on the shelf. So it's not in much of a condition for reading, but it is a fine condition for display. So the resurrection of a 1611 King James Bible. Okay, let's do the good life. My 7 objectives are, number 1, to be always ready to die, to have my affairs, my relationships, and my life's work in order. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of time, so that I'm not frittering my life away, but doing something useful in the time that I have. The third objective is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's precisely this list of 7 and 30. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I'm responding well to the day, to the unexpected circumstances that happen throughout the day. Next is to perform good actions, just to do good things. The next objective is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities so that I can live within the lines of what is and is not possible. reasonably measured. And then the last and final objective is to just do one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly so that I'm never multitasking. Now for my 30 principles. These are as follows. Number 1 is the principle of war. To always be fighting against any proposition of truth, especially those that I maintain and hold myself. Number 2 is the principle of reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are the ways of thinking and engaging with the world that will help me to maintain a critical outlook. I want to add some teeth to that. It's not just outlook. It's kind of like I want to say a cutting edge, but that doesn't sound different right either. But, pursuing what seems to be in an inquiring manner, forcefully inquiring manner, almost. Not belligerent, but taking such things seriously, serious enough to warrant in-depth and critical examination. The type of examination that, for example, Aristotle does with politics. If I could be only so diligent about the things that I think are true, or that I think are important. To remember that, number 3, this is the third principle, is to remember that I do not have a soul, but I do have a consciousness. And though I will not survive my death, I can make good use of the time while I'm alive. The next principle is called the Anchorhold, which is a suggestion that we are all ultimately alone in our skulls. Even when we communicate and reach out and touch and hold others, we're still alone. A little rocky outpost in the sea. Each of us on our own rock. Next is the home of good and evil, which is my reminder that the things that I think are true and that are good or bad, right or wrong, are opinions that I've built up in or collected from others and that I maintain in my mind. They don't exist outside me, other than the facts of the observations of the world that I see. Next is the principle of purpose. There are 3 purposes in my life. 1, to be a good family man, to raise my daughter to maturity, get her out on her own, so that she can sustain herself and be ready for my wife and I to pass. Excuse me. Number 2 is to be a virtuous man, where virtue is defined as the improvement of the well-being of creatures, particularly thinking creatures. Happiness, if you like, where that happiness does not come at the undue expense of others. And then my third purpose is the pursuit of my sharing of my book, Going Alone, which outlines the story of how I came up with these 7 objectives and 30 principles. Put that just right. The next principle is called the atomic principle, a suggestion that, a reminder, not a suggestion, a reminder that the world is made of little pieces, atoms, molecules, and enlivened with energy. And that's all I am too. Next after that comes the principle of nature, a reminder that everything has some particular nature, and that I'll do better if I can recognize what that nature is and remember that and abide it or fight it if that nature is not good. Pardon me. Didn't sleep enough. After the principle of nature comes maturity. No, the pirate ride. The idea that free will is an illusion, that we are just jostling chemicals, Brownian motion that thinks more of ourselves than we deserve in terms of our thought-making and decisions. That we can make any decision we like, that we could never have made any decision other than the ones that we actually do make. Next comes maturity, and the idea that we are wise when we remember what we have done in the past, what our successes and failures were, and we are effective when we can have the strength to avoid the failures and replicate them the successes, or further ourselves along those lines. Next is the social principle. We need each other. Then comes public speaking, a reminder to use few words, deliberate words, carefully chosen words, and to never ever gossip. Next comes the principle of temperance, a reminder to be very careful about my consumption, to consume, to endeavor to consume just enough, whether that be work or play or food or drink or whatever. And that a simple life is a temperate life. And that temperance involves some degree of suffering sometimes because we deny ourselves what we want. And that I can utilize apathy to deal effectively with the things that are outside of my control. The next principle is the horror show. Life is chock full of terrible things. I want to remember that and to try to help alleviate some of it. After that comes a principle called that which must be borne, as in carried, which is the fact of the horror show. Also the fact of the responsibilities that we have onboarded in the pursuit of our objectives. For me, one of those is my job that keeps me awake at night. It's something that I've taken on. I have to bear that, at least until my daughter is safely out on her own. Next comes distraction. We distract ourselves with things like work and play and hobbies, politics, whatever, you name it. We just use it to distract ourselves in part from what I call the great indifference, which is the howling emptiness behind the clockwork machinations of the mindless universe that H.P. Lovecraft envisioned. I call it the great indifference, and lay emphasis on the mindless part, and also point out that it's quite deadly. There, that was two principles there. The principle of distraction and the principle of agency and the great indifference. Next comes the best seat in the house. To try not to want to be anyone else or be anywhere else or be doing anything else other than who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing just now. Well, paradoxically, all the while seeking to improve. It's a bit of a puzzle, that one. Next comes the path of wildness. It's easy to find. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. It's also a way forward out of the status quo into a new life by collecting facts, giving ourselves time to think, and then making a decision, perhaps nudged forward by our gut instinct. The next principle is called the risk of avoiding risk. The idea that there are surface level risks of life, education, job, family, home, savings, and the deep risk of taking the time to find ourselves and doing something with that. Next is sin and damnation. The sins in my life, in my worldview, are falsity, to believe things, to be untrue, basically. Credulity, which is an overwillingness to believe, to believing too readily. Hope, which is a want that has no action, no motive force attached to it. Faith, which is belief where the fact of the belief is held up as the evidence for the belief, which is a circular argument. And it's how the snake eats itself. Another sin is superstition, which is easy to avoid because it's practically labeled with blinking signs. Superstition. The next is authority, believing something because someone in a high office says it's true. And next is dogma, believing something because it's been the way things are, the tradition, the masses agree. And then lastly is gossip. All of these sins lead to a form of damnation in the here and now, where we wind up either believing things that we may have no good reason to believe, or doing things, hurting others by virtue of gossip that soils us all. The next principle is called complete oblivion. The suggestion that after death there is nothing else, that as there is nothing to follow life, the only chance that we can have to reunite with those we love, or those that we want to reconnect with, is now. The only chance we have to reconcile any differences with such people is to do so now. And then the only opportunity to pursue justice is in this one life that we get. The next principle is the great life adventure. One or more marquee events in our life, an experience that we can have that helps to define us and to give us a story to carry through our lives and to build our tale on, to build our experience on. And then the next principle is called the season of philosophy, which is a time to record what we've learned over the course of our life, to share with the ones that will remain after we're gone. The key thing is that when the words come, you better write them down. We're prepared to record them in some manner. Maybe it's in a video or a piece of art, whatever the case may be, because soon the words fail and they don't come back. One chance each for the muse. The muse may come back, but she'll always have something different to say. Even if it sounds the same, it's different. Next comes the bullseye aim, striving for the mark but usually missing. Arena and utility. Life is an arena for the pursuit of our life's objectives, utilizing our principles as the instruments in that endeavor. The next principle is called the uphill climb. Life is a steady climb, higher and higher. The air gets thinner, but the view gets better. Next comes arena and utility. I already talked about that one. What did I miss? I must have missed one. Bullseye aim, uphill climb, arena and utility. Did I miss one? Nothing is enough is the next principle. Just a reminder to try to get by with less. And then finally, the principle of fun. A suggestion to make good time of this life. There, I did my good life of meditation for today. Now let's plan for the coming day. I have a lot of meetings today. I have like 8 meetings. Most of them are in the afternoon, short half-hour meetings with the people that will be attending a training class that I'm delivering next week. Those won't be too hard to do. Very routine, but fun and interesting. Human one-on-one is always good. In the morning at 8:30, I think I do have a meeting then. Today's what? Tuesday, yeah. And then I have another one at 10. That's an important meeting. That's the one that's probably, that one and the one at 11 are the ones that have my mind. I've got those under control though. I do have to prepare for the one at 11 more. I can easily prepare for the one at 10, but the one at 11 is going to require some more due diligence, and I won't have a lot of time to do it. So I'll get on it. And then maybe I'll sleep better tonight. But I'm not going to count on it. Well, that's it for today. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.